Hi there, and welcome to the Discipline of Discipleship, where hopefully we'll teach you some of the disciplines it takes to be a disciple. In this season, it's been particularly difficult to really focus and get the mindset on the good things that God is doing for us. Because around us there's so much confusion, so much difficulty, and in fact so much uncertainty as well, that we don't know what it is that is going to happen next. In fact, it's very difficult to plan for anything, really, when we don't even know if next week we'll be able to do what we're normally doing. But the discipline that we have to have as Christians is a simple one: faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. That's what it says in Hebrews 11, and without faith it's impossible to please God. So in all circumstances that we faced, when the enemy comes to steal, kill and destroy from us, we must choose to put our faith in God for the impossible things. Now, what is faith? These days we talk about having a faith, and we talk about the measure of faith. But in reality, where we get our definition of the word faith from is from Hebrews chapter 11. And also, actually, in that chapter, we get a practical example of who it was that lived by faith and that God used in history to demonstrate what it took to be people of faith. People like Rahab. Rahab was a prostitute, but she knew that she had to house the spies, and she put her life at risk to look after these guys. That was faith. Or Abraham, who, even though he slipped and stumbled a few times, believed that when God promised that they would have a child at 99 years of age, he still had faith that God was going to do something for them. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Now, what does that really mean to each one of us? It's not wishful thinking. Because when we put our faith and hope in Jesus, he says that greater things that we will do than what he did. Wow, that is a great word from the Gospels. But we have to have faith. Now, Jesus also asks in the Gospels what will happen towards the end of the age, and asks that question, will he find faith on the earth? Now, I love that verse. I really do. Because I do want to proclaim each time, and when he says that and saying, yes, when you come again, you'll find faith here. You'll find faith in me, because I believe that nothing is impossible with God or for God. Nothing is impossible. Now, just recently I've been reminded of a season in our life when we were in Manchester. And Manchester is well known as a rainy city, and I was very, very zealous at the time, and I really, really wanted to serve God. We'd left everything behind in Worcester. We were living on a fruit farm. We'd moved to inner city Moss Side, a tough area of Manchester, and we didn't have anybody around us. And very shortly after that, we were very struggling for finances and actually in our own identity. We were on our knees regularly. We had nothing but Jesus. And I remember going to church one Sunday morning and hearing of the work that the street pastors had been doing. And in that time, they were meeting so many people. It was winter. They're meeting so many people who had nothing. And so they were saying to the church, would you donate your any coats or any jumpers to keep these people warm at night? And I got really challenged at the time by being overzealous, I guess, and saying it's my first fruits offering. This has to be my first fruits offering. I must give the best of what I've got. So my best coats, in fact, all my coats, my best jumpers in the middle of winter, all my jumpers, I decided to give to this appeal because it was my first fruits offering. We also went off and gave to met some homeless people on the street ourselves and put them in hostels for a night. At the same time, we were giving everything to help these people until we had nothing left. And that's when faith had to kick in, because shortly afterwards, the car that I used to travel around in failed its MOT, and there was no way we could afford another car or even to run that one, so it had to be scrapped. I did have to walk a mile every day to get to my office in Manchester. And Manchester, as I say, is known as a very rainy place. But I would often pray for that journey. And it's not silly, but I would say, Lord, I have nothing but you. And I know that if I choose to walk to work now, because I have to, I need to get to the office, that if it's raining, without your intervention, I'm going to get wet. Now, I don't really like getting wet, but I had no coat, no umbrella either at the time, and really no money to be able to get another one. We were really living by faith and on the edge. And you know what? In that time, only 3 or 4 times in a year and a half did it actually rain on me during that time. Only 3 or 4 times, and it was just miraculous, because I realised that faith is the substance of things hoped for. I hoped in the fact that I wouldn't get wet and it wouldn't rain, and I put my faith into action, and God honoured that prayer. So much so that there were times when we had groups of missionaries even coming to stay with us in Moss Side as well for it, and it was absolutely throwing it down. And I said to them, it'll be okay, because we've got to walk half an hour into Moss Side, but I know it's going to be okay. And 5 minutes before we were due to leave, it stopped raining. And 5 minutes after the half an hour walk, we arrived at the other end, it began to rain again. Now that was for a season, because I needed to know that even though we had nothing but God, I could put my faith in Him, and He would demonstrate that He was still over the weather and that He was looking out for me. Now I can list multiple times in my life of massive things that He seems to have done, that have spoken to me and put me in that position just at the right time. I have stories like the ravens feeding Elijah, and being on the beach in Malta and seeing God provide food. I've seen myself at the end of my tether with nowhere else to turn, and God gave me a job in a place called Sanctuary, which was like, the way He named it was just miraculous. That's why I discipline myself now in every circumstance, even though we face impossible things and very difficult things, to put my faith in Him. Because without faith, I believe it's impossible to please God. And the challenge comes in every season, because even now, with so much illness and worry and fear all around, I question whether our faith is really put in God, that He's over this. This season shouldn't be affecting us as Christians, because our faith is in Jesus and our hope is in Him. Only when we get distracted by the circumstances around us do we then discover that our faith is not in Him. I love the story of when Peter, he demonstrated his faith by walking on the water. All Jesus said was to come to Him. Peter ignored the circumstances and the impossibilities, focused on Jesus, and began to walk to Him. And then when all the circumstances came upon him and he looked away from Jesus, that's when he began to sink. Of course, Jesus picked him up and carried him. But that story should challenge us, because without faith, it's impossible to please God. Without trusting him and believing that he can do the impossible things, can we please him? So when we find ourselves facing impossibilities, that's when our focus goes upon Jesus. Hebrews 11, so many great stories, is amazingly followed by Hebrews 12. It talks of fixing our eyes upon Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. Fixing our eyes upon him is what changed the lives of Abraham, Moses, Rahab, Gideon, all those great people of faith. Where are your eyes fixed? And I ask again, when Jesus comes back, which may be very soon, will he find faith on the earth, and will he find it in you?